Hola, my friends. Welcome to week 10 of The Artist's Way. It's your girl, Iman Get a Life. New background today, new background today, new background today. Why do I have a new background? Well, because there's stuff going on in my house and I have scheduled this live for 6:30 p.m. Also, I had plans after, but they got canceled. So I was going to go live at 9 p.m. like I usually do on Mondays, but instead I am going live at 6:30 p.m. because it's Central Time. It's okay. I have some notes for us for week 10 of The Artist's Way. This is some of my favorite stuff to talk about. So if you're interested, stay tuned. Let's get into it. Okay. The first thing I learned this week, which I already knew, but like every single one of us has vices that we struggle with. Every single one of us has addictions. Everyone likes to make themselves seem like if they're not addicted to drugs, then they don't have any addictions. But what I learned in this book is that all addictions stem from blocks to your creativity. Because we're all creative beings. That's really the truth of what we are. We are human beings, but we are creative beings, which means when we don't express our creativity, we basically find ways to fill the fear of not expressing our creativity, which comes in the form of food addictions, alcohol addictions, drug addictions, work addictions, and sex addictions. I already knew this, which is why I recently quit smoking weed. And if you know me, you know that I love weed. So for me to stop smoking weed was a huge thing because I was like, I don't think I can ever even imagine a life where I don't smoke weed. Sorry, there's people in the background because this is a business center. But what I learned is that, first of all, in Mexico, the weed kind of sucks. Like, it's full of seeds and it's full of stems. So I wasn't the type of person that's going to sit there and pick out all that stuff. Like, if I want to get high, I'm going to grind it all up and I'm going to put it in a bong and I'm going to hit the bong. So it was giving me a lot of headaches and a lot of migraines, and it was making me a very slow, uncreative, bored, tired version of myself. And so I got the call, like I heard the download from the universe, and it was like, stop smoking weed. And I was like, okay. So I stopped. Since then, it's been incredibly hard to adjust to sleeping because now I can fall asleep better because it's been like 2 months. But at first, it was really hard to fall asleep because I used to like overthink a lot. And then you have weird dreams when you stop smoking weed because your brain goes into REM sleep, which doesn't happen when you smoke weed. So not only do you get higher quality sleep when you're not high, but you also get more intense dreams because you actually go into REM. So the detox phase was a little crazy, and since then I've been able to like slow down and and have like more normal dreams and fall asleep a lot easier. But the book confirmed what I already knew, which is that I was using it as a vice to pretend that it's giving me creativity when all it was doing was calming me down because I felt afraid of actually being creative. So that's what I wrote here. A block, a creative block, like the tools that we use for creative blocks, food, alcohol, drugs, work, or sex, is used to eliminate fear. So the fear comes from an issue of faith in our creator. Now, once again, this book frames God as an acronym, and the G stands for good, the O stands for orderly, and the D stands for doings. So God is really good, orderly doings, and I love that. I think that's beautiful. So when you are blocked because you have fear of being creative, essentially what you are also experiencing is a lack of faith in your ability to be in sync with your creator, with your higher self, with your flow, your creative flow. And I was like, wow, I'm guilty of that because every time I would get in a creative flow, I would get up, smoke some weed, and then I would get hungry, so I would make something to eat, and then I would get bored, so I would scroll on social media and check to see if someone texted me and all this other stuff that's just stuff, like useless stuff to do in order to fill the void of being afraid of being creative. Silly, but it's true. It happens. What I also learned, and the girlies on TikTok are also talking about this, crushes, having a crush, that limerence stage of having a crush is just unchanneled creativity. And this is what the patriarchy has convinced women to do so seamlessly. Take the crush, the person that you have a crush on, and make them the focus of your creativity so that you don't have time to make anything else. That's why girls have wild daydreams when they like a guy. Like, we will literally sit here and create entire scenarios in our head with this guy that we just met a day ago because we have a crush on him. That's creative energy that's being channeled into a person, an idea of a person, instead of into an actual project, which is toxic. So, capitalism, another system that keeps us chained and away from our creativity, is also a creative block. Why? Because it creates workaholics. I used to be one of those people who was like, I'm busy, I'm working, I'm busy, I'm working. Look at me, work, work, work. And I was so proud of that. And I realized that workaholism is also called a process addiction. A process addiction is an addiction to a behavior rather than a substance, which I have never heard before, but I'm learning something new with this book every day, and that's why I'm going live every week to share with you. Because there are so many shameful narratives around being addicted to drugs and alcohol, right? But praise, actually, like when you're addicted to work, you actually get praised for that. A lot of workaholics find other workaholics to surround themselves by, and then they feed each other's workaholism by praising how hard they're working, or praising yourself or punishing yourself for not being a workaholic. Like, when I was running a business, I literally wanted to do more all the time. And I never felt satisfied with what I was actually doing because I was a workaholic who was surrounded by other workaholics. So I was constantly comparing my progress to other people's progress and being like, well, they're working harder than me, so I have to go harder. So I need more clients, or I need more sales, or I need more output on social media, or I need more traffic, or I need more this and that and that and that. Really, workaholism keeps us away from our creativity, because creativity requires silence and doing nothing, which workaholics don't know how to do. It freaks them out to be silent and to do nothing, right? So these are all addictions that are getting in the way of you being an actual artist, of me being an actual artist. And I'm not saying that there's a certain thing that makes you an actual artist, because if you're an artist, you're an artist, but it keeps you away from fulfilling your true artist self, because it keeps you constantly in the loop of the next thing that you're going to use to coddle yourself, to be like, I'm doing good enough, even though you're not actually fulfilling your creativity. Sad. Next thing I learned, and this is a very painful experience that every single artist goes through, and she calls it a creative drought. So a creative drought is when you don't have anything to say, you don't want to say anything, you don't want to show up, you don't want to make anything, you don't have any inspiration, you don't have any motivation, you don't have any ideas. You're just like, what's going on? I said, hey, what's going on? I've been through a lot of creative droughts in my life. And so Julia, the author, was like, the creative droughts is the moments where it's the most important to keep doing the morning pages. And I'll be honest with you guys, the morning pages have not been that fun for me lately. Like, I can barely do two pages of morning pages. You're supposed to do 3, but sometimes I stop at like 1.5 because I'm like, I don't have anything else to say. And I actually don't want to do this because it's boring. Which means I'm in a creative drought, which I don't think I am, because like when I hear a beat, I can come up with words for it. But it's more like I've been working on other things so much that I don't have the energy I need to channel into being creative. So that's maybe why it's been hard for me to do the morning pages. She said, write the morning pages anyway. And then this sentence, very profound, I'm going to write it down. To write is to write things. So write in English is spelled W-R-I-T-E. So to write is to write things, which is R-I-G-H-T, which means to write is to make things right. And I love that. I'm going to remember that. That is very motivational, actually. Okay, moving on. Fame. Fame, a topic I love to discuss. Why? Why do I love to discuss the topic of fame? Because today, everyone wants to be famous, and everyone wants to be famous for the wrong reasons. Everyone wants to be famous because they want attention. Who doesn't want attention? It's nice to get attention. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of famous on TikTok, and it's nice to be kind of famous on TikTok. So Julia says that fame is a spiritual drug. And when she said that, I realized, oh, let me fix that. So the focus of your art, of your creativity, becomes less about how amazing it feels to make the art and more about how amazing it looks to other people. And that's so freaking true because it becomes the focus. It becomes the priority. And then you can't even create art in your mind if you're constantly being perceived. I mean, you can't even create art if you're constantly in your mind perceiving your art through a third person perspective before it's even been created. It's hard to do that because every single person has something to say about every single piece of art that's been created ever. Even the best of the best artists receive criticism and backlash for their work, right? So imagine if they didn't create that work because they perceived the criticism that they were going to receive before they even created the work. Then we wouldn't have seen the work, which sucks because it was a great piece of work. So focusing on fame creates a lack mentality, which I learned. And then I also learned that what we're scared of is that without the fear, we won't be loved. This is why I talk about shadow work. And this is why I like doing shadow work, especially as a spiritual person, because when you understand your motivation, your intention behind wanting certain things, then you understand how to reframe it in a way where you go towards it positively instead of from a place of lack and desperation and wanting to prove something to other people. So what I want is to be loved, right? Everyone wants to be loved. But what I'm afraid of is that without fame, I won't be loved. I'm afraid that the fame is necessary in the equation of receiving love, when that's not the truth. Why? Because like I said, every famous artist has received criticism. Not everybody's going to like you just because you're a famous artist. Look at Drake. A bunch of people hate him, even though he's a super famous artist, right? And same with Nicki Minaj, and same with like literally every single artist. Every single famous artist has a bunch of haters. So those people hate them. It's not that they love them or they're just pretending that they don't love them or whatever. No, they actually hate them. They don't like seeing them on social media. They don't want to hear their music. They don't want to hear anything about them. They don't like them at all. So who cares though? Because they're still famous, right? And the reason why they're still famous is because they found a way to still love themselves. They found a way to focus their energy and their attention inwards onto themselves instead of constantly chasing the fame, which is the spiritual drug. Okay, moving on. One of my favorite quotes ever came from the book. Was it Think and Grow Rich? It might have been Think and Grow Rich. But the quote is, I kind of forget. I wish I wrote it down. Create, don't compete, or something like that. It was like, you can't be a creator if you're a competitor, something like that. I don't remember. But anyways, moving on. She says that competition is another spiritual drug. And I'm very anti-competition, which is not a part of the capitalist system. Capitalism rewards competition. Why? Because competition is what drives the market. Because if you're the only person offering a product or service, you're not really winning because you're the only one who's doing it. So if someone else creates the same product or service and they sell more than you, now they're winning technically because they're the ones who are dominating the market, even though you were dominating the market first before that competitor ever entered the market, which is why competition is a spiritual drug also, because when you focus too much on what other people are doing and how similar it is to what you're doing and whether or not you are doing it better or you're doing it first or you're being the original person to do it, then the focus stops being about the actual love of the art, the passion behind creating art, and it starts becoming, I can do it first and I can do it better, which is egotistical. That's why it's a spiritual drug. Okay. She says the desire, I wrote this down too because it's very, very profound. The desire to be better can choke off the desire to just be. Okay. We are called human beings. We are not called human doing better than every other humans. Okay, something to sit on. And I have to remind myself of that constantly because it's hard to be someone who doesn't judge your worth by your output in a system that tells you that your worth is your output. So when you choose to remove yourself from that system and say, I'm going to define my worth based on what I want to define it by, and not based on competition and not based on fame and not based on money and not based on numbers, you exit the same rat race that everyone is stuck in, and you start being able to create your own original work. Okay. And I realize this now. She says the competitive mentality is always the ego's demand to be not just good, but also first and best. Okay. And a lot of us are guilty of this. A lot of artists are guilty of wanting to be the first and the best to do something. And then when they don't get that recognition, they crash out. Or if someone else does it too, and then they get the recognition for it, and the artist who created the first and best thing doesn't get the recognition, they start hating that other artist for doing it better than them. And my light just died, but whatever. I'm almost done anyway. So she says there's no such thing as original work because all work is influenced by other work. And this is very healing for me to hear, and very validating for me to hear. Okay, there we go. Good thing I bring my charger with me everywhere I go, huh? It was very validating for me to hear because sometimes people will make you feel guilty for your work resembling other artists' work. You know what I mean? When the reality is, there's that famous artist, I don't remember who it was, that was like, great artists copy, good artists steal, or something like that. And it's not to say that stealing is a good thing to do, but it's more to say that there really is no original piece of art because we're all being influenced by everything that we're seeing and hearing without even choosing to be influenced by it. Like it just happens. So what is originality then, if that's the case? If you're always influenced by everything that you see and hear, then is there really such a thing as originality? My answer, yes, there is such a thing as originality, because originality means staying true to yourself. And originality is really another word for authenticity, right? Authenticity is a big buzzword these days. Everyone's like, be authentic, be authentic. And the only thing that that means is to stay true to who you are, which makes you make original work by default. If you stay true to who you are, your work can't resemble someone else's because you're the only person who's you. So even if you're influenced by someone else, your work stays original because you're staying true to yourself. And I think that's very motivating. That's very empowering. This has been an insane journey so far. I have 2 weeks left with the Artist Way, and I took a week off work this week. So I'll be back at work on the weekend. But Monday to Friday, I have to myself. And I'm very excited to actually implement some of the stuff that I've been learning, because so far I've been learning and writing and documenting, but I haven't really been implementing. Like I've been implementing with the morning pages and with the way that I think, but not with the art that I'm actually creating. And mostly it's because I haven't really been creating that much. I've been working, I've been learning, I've been in a stage where my creativity needs to be sharpened. So that's exactly what this journey is doing for me. And I'm going to, at the very end of this journey, I'm going to go back to my very first original video and watch it. And I'm going to watch every single one of these videos all the way through so that I can remind myself what I actually learned, because every single week is new information and I'm documenting it and I'm like putting it out there, and then I'm moving on to the next thing. I'm not really spending that much time reflecting on it. But when you reflect on the things that you actually learned, it sticks in your memory, and then it's easier for you to actually live by that. The whole point of reading books is to live by the books that you're reading, not just so you can read the book and say, oh yeah, I read the book. So what? We've all read books before. And how many of us are actually living by the books that we've read? Very rare, very rare. So I'm challenging myself to do that. This is a thing for me. This is a personal mission, because it's important for me to be creative and to be dedicated to my art beyond just posting on social media and showing up on social media and making cool little videos. No, it's important for me to fall in love with the journey of actually being an artist, the process of actually creating art, and then the output of that art, because it was created through love and passion and self-acceptance and flow with the great creator. So that's it for week 10. Thank you for joining me. Love you guys so much. See you soon.